What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
All right, Brian Murphy, it's great to have you here on the Learning Leaders Show, man. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I don't normally start with the origin story of somebody's company. However, given yours, I do want to start with it because your company was born out of adversity. And so I know this is really open-ended, but can you share a bit about how Athletes First got started and what it was like in those early days about 20 years ago?
Sure. No, absolutely. It's a great story, and I think it's some people might think, oh wow, that's a terrible story, or it's a horror story, but like for us, we wouldn't be where we are today without the original adversity. So it's kind of like our scar of honor, if you would say. But yeah, sure. The story goes really. I was a lawyer in Boston, practicing at Ropes and Gray, and I got a phone call asking me to if I want to be a sports agent in California. And I flew out to California and I met with Lee Steinberg and Jeff Morad and David Dunn. At the time, their agency was Steinberg, Morad, and Dunn. And it was one of the largest sports agencies in the world and very successful. Jerry Maguire was out and had been filmed in The Office. And so I was pretty excited about it. And I got the job offer, and my wife was 7 months pregnant. We were both in Boston. And we decided to leave everything behind, take a massive pay cut, move into sell everything we had, move into a small apartment, sell our second car, rode my bike to work or walk to work, and decided to basically sacrifice everything to become a sports agent. And I did that for 2 years, and I learned a lot. Got a lot of great experiences. But near the end of 2 years, I decided it probably wasn't for me. I love being a sports agent, but just all kinds of issues that really weren't working out for me. So I went to Dave Dunn and said, "Hey, Dave, I really appreciate working for you. You're a great guy, but it's time for me to move back to Boston. This was kind of a dream come true being a sports agent, but it's not a life. It can't be a life job." And he said, "Well, hold on. A lot of my clients, Drew Bledsoe and Todd Stussy and Johnny Morton and John Lynch, have come to me, and they also are dissatisfied with where we are, and they would like me to start my own sports agency. And if I do that, I need you by my side because I need someone to run the whole thing." And I looked at him and said, "Are you gonna start your own company?" He said, "Yeah, I think I am. I want you to be my partner." And I said, "All right, but one thing," and I said it straight out, like, "we're not going to be Dunn and Murphy. Like, no way. Like, we have to create a culture where we put the athletes first." And I didn't say that like, wow, I have this great name of a company, but that's the sentence I used. And we both agreed right then, hey, okay, we'll start a new company and we'll call it Athletes First. That'll be the name, that'll be our mission. And that will kind of rule every decision we make, what's best for the athlete. So Dave and I and his assistant, we resigned from SMD and we started our new company, Athletes First. And I was in the impression that we had some investment money coming in from a gentleman named Wick Grosbeck, who's now the owner of the Celtics, and I'm a huge Celtics fan, so that was pretty exciting. So we left, and I called Wick Grosbeck up, through Drew Bledsoe, and had a great conversation with him. Very enjoyed talking to him, but his message to me was, "No, we don't have any investment money for you. You guys are on your own." So we started this company thinking we had $3 million investment coming in. We had none. What we did have was a lot of clients who wanted to be part of what we're going to start. We had a lot of employees. So Dave and I left on our own, and we set up shop in Dave's living room. And over the course of the first week, people kept knocking on the door, and there was the employees from the SMD football department. I said, "Hey, we want to be a part of this. We want to be a part of this." And my answer to them was like, "Listen, we have no money. We're figuring out who our clients are. Clients make their own choice, but we have no money. We have no office. We have no plan. Like, probably the worst decision you could do is come join Athletes First." And they're like, "Listen, you have the name, you have the mission, you have the culture, and that's what we want to do." And so numerous employees ended up coming joining us again, and we didn't want to pay them. We were working out of Dave's living room. The only thing for certain at that time was that we're going to get sued. And Steinberg and Dunn had sold themselves to $1 billion public company in Canada. They had invested a lot of money into building a sports conglomerate, and to let Dave and myself walk out the door and to give agents a choice, that wasn't part of the business plan. And so they had said to us, like, listen, we don't care if you're right or you're wrong. We're going to sue you. We're going to spend all the money we have, and we're going to, that court, we're going to pick your financial carcass. And they did. And so for the next 5 years, they sued everybody. They sued myself. They sued Dave. They sued all the employees. They sued my father-in-law. They sued my wife. They sued anyone who was close to Athletes First.
Your
They,
wife?
yeah, they sued my wife, who
How
was
did they? What did she do?
she's just part of it. She's just part. And she had to have done something, right? And so they just, and they didn't really care. They were, and I understand this. They were trying to protect their investment. At the same time they were suing us, they were asking us to come back. And say, listen, come back, come back.
What a great way to form a relationship, huh?
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah. One foot on our throat, literally, and the other one, sending a check.
Yeah.
But I understand, listen, business, like they were trying to protect their investment, and I understood their perspective. And we were up in Winnipeg talking to Marty Weinberg, and I said, listen, he's like, what? He's like, what's wrong with you? Like, why? We'll pay you a lot of money to come back. You can have everything. I'm like, it's just different. It's different, Marty. It's owning our own company is a different experience, and we want to do things the right way. We want to do things our way. And so they sued us for 5 years, 6 years. They sued us. They spent $18 million suing us. They sued us in state court, federal court, arbitration. They filed complaints with the union, and they did a good job. They got the best lawyers in the world. We had no money, so I hired my college roommate, Mark Humanick, and his wife, Laura Sullivan, and they were both lawyers in Cleveland. Mark and I had always talked about being sports agents together in college. Sit around and drink beers and be like, oh, we're going to be sports agents. You never think it's come to fruition. But the other thing about Mark Humanick is he never lost at anything, whether it's baseball or quarters or, anything we do in college, he never lost. And I thought, well, come on out, Mark, and you can call him Humes. Come on out, Humes, and you'll be our general counsel and guide us through this litigation. And if we get through it, I'll give you a piece of the company. If we don't, at least we were sports agents together for a little while. We realized that dream. So we hired a law firm, his law firm out of Cleveland. They had a great litigator as well. Unfortunately, that great litigator had cancer and passed away before the trial, which was another setback for us. But after 4 years of litigation, we went to trial, big federal court, long trial. The results came in. We're all sitting in our war room. I told my team, worst case scenario, we lose, damages are $1 million, $2 million, and we'll figure out a way to pay that off. Best case scenario, we win. Somewhere in between is most likely. Someone read us the verdict, and I was way off. The verdict was about $44 million against us, $20 million punitive damages. We raced to the courthouse and filed bankruptcy, which is not something anyone's ever proud to do, but we had to do it. We had to file bankruptcy for two reasons. One, we had to protect all of our assets so we could continue to operate as a company. And two, the only way to file an appeal was you either had to pay a bond, which we couldn't afford, or file bankruptcy. So we filed bankruptcy, and they were like, okay, we'll appeal and we'll get through this. And the strangest thing kept happening, though. We kept signing more clients. We kept signing, we signed the number 1 pick of the draft, Carson Palmer. We started off with the number 3 and 4 pick of the draft, Joey Harrington, Mike Williams. Veterans like Todd Heap, Wes Welker were coming over. And people asked me, how are you guys signing all these clients? It doesn't make sense. You're literally on the verge. You're one decision away from being distinct, And I think the answer to that, which you can probably get to later, is just, when you have those burdens, when you have you truly want it, you just have to try harder. And we had to differentiate ourselves, and we had to provide a service across the board that was just better than anyone else. Because truthfully, why else would anyone sign with us? You don't sign up with an agent thinking that they're going to be gone in a month or two. So we continued our business as usual, as much as we could. And then the union called NFLPA, which they certified us to be agents, and they indicated, although they had been testified on our side and they were in support of us, they were going to take away our license because of the bankruptcy and the judgment against us. And So they filed a motion to take away our license, which would have been the end of us. Uh, Fortunately, we won that, and we said, "Listen, our license is protected by the bankruptcy shield," and so that was a decision that I don't know that could have gone either way. But if it gone against us, we were done, like completely done. We won that decision, and then there's all kinds of appeals. We had to go like undefeated on every decision to get to where we are today, and we did. For the course of the year, we kept winning case decision after hearing. And I'll never forget, kind of like Tom Cruise, although he looks nothing like Tom Cruise. Like I'm sitting there at my desk working, and I hear this big yell. Our teammate comes running down the aisle, like slides on his knees, like risky business style, and he's got the hearing in his hand, the appeal in his hand, the opinion, and the opinion, the federal court, Ninth Circuit overturned the opinion. They ordered a new trial. They gave us the rules for the new trial, which are all in our favor. They basically said Athletes First did nothing wrong, and that we were free to go forward. And so we were able to emerge from bankruptcy. We were able to settle the case. The other side, as I said, before, spent $18 million over 5 years trying to destroy us. We were able to settle it for peanuts, and then really start the real Athletes First journey. So like the Athletes First 1.0 was survive, and then Athletes First 2.0 was to thrive. And so it's a kind of a long-winded version of it, although I have much longer versions of it. And but lots of adversity, lots of fear, pulling together, and at the end of the day, we were able to emerge from what was pretty ominous start to what we're trying to do.
Wow. When you said, because it makes sense, I would ask the same question. Why all the other agents, and there are a lot of them, I've spoken with a number of them, would easily say, well, why would you even take a meeting with Athletes First? They're going to go out of business. They're bankrupt. I mean, it's very probably they would have really easy pitches against you, and yet you're still earning clients. What when you say you have to try harder and provide better service, like what does that actually tactically mean? What are some of the day-to-day things that you guys were willing to do in order to earn clients in the midst of a bankruptcy, of potentially going out of business, of other agents who are very aggressive, saying that's a waste of time. They're not gonna be in business. I mean, that there are many challenges there. So what are some of the things you did that were able to convince people to say, "No, I wanna go with these guys?"
Yeah, that's a great question. And at the time, one school of thought was, hey, we should just go out and hire the best recruiters. Like, go get the best recruiters, and that will help. And my response to that was like, even the best recruiters aren't going to can't overcome these questions. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're great recruiters because they're recruiting to whether it's IMG at the time or the Two Road Town at the time, and Joe Siegel, and they have a platform. Like we don't have a platform. Our platform is just decimated. So what we have to do is forget about the recruiters. We have to go hire the best people to create that platform. So we have to go hire the best negotiators. We got to go hire people who are lawyers, who have their MBAs, who negotiate for a living, and lure them into this business and be able to make a real difference in negotiating. So negotiating professionals, trained negotiators, like who can really make a difference, right? Training was a big, becoming a big part, not as big as it was now, but training. Like we're going to have our own exclusive training facility, and we're going to do it in our backyard, and that way we're going to get to know the rookies straight out of college, and that's completely different. We're not going to send them to the IMG Academy or to API or those type of places. We're going to have our own place. But the biggest difference really was the client services, and we hired a woman, Savannah Wall, who's one of our vice presidents now. She's actually also a certified agent now. And she's phenomenal. She's still, I think, the best employee in the business. And we said, Savannah, we have to do everything for these clients, like every part of their life, not just planes and hotels and, vacations, but we have to become not a concierge service, but for the manager. People in Hollywood, they have agents that have managers, and managers take care of their whole life. We have to proactively take care of everything that they could possibly do. So our football players can concentrate on football, becoming the best football player they can be. And then when they're not playing football, they have everything that they need in life to really enjoy it. Whether it's like the latest training, the latest rehabilitation, vacations, and like Reggie Wayne wanted this to get his pet steak from New Orleans to Indianapolis, which was against every state law along the way. And so just we became problem solvers. We would do everything for our clients and make a difference. And then our pitch became, listen, as your agent, our job is to make you the best person and player you can be on and off the field. And we can't, run the 40 for you. We can't do 225 and 225 for you. But what we can do is take care of everything else in your life and provide you the resources and the platform to become the best person and player that you can be. And we also, like for example, we started our own charity department where we, in house we could create charity events. First one we did with the Carson Palmer Open. We helped Carson build a whole, house for underprivileged children in Orange County. So just basically give 100% of ourselves, and hire a lot of people, top quality people, so we could make a difference in their lives. And I think the clients, when I looked at athletes first, they said, listen, they are committed. They have the resources to make me the best football player I can be, but also make me the best person I can be. And then on top of all that, I think the key was, as we told everyone, we're not a sports agency. We offer you an experience. We offer you a family. And if you want to be part of that family, it's that we're here for you, and we'll always be, no matter what happens with litigation. And so those were the differentiators. But the truth of the matter is, that's really who we were. It wasn't a change for us. It wasn't. It's why we started Athletes First. It's why we left SMD, and that we wanted to have a personal relationship with all our clients and wanted them to be family members. And I know you have a lot of family members, a lot of daughters, and you probably do something. What you do for your daughters is different than what you do for a guest on your show, right? Or different than you do for a client, a corporation who you consulted with. And that's what the mentality we had to adopt. Like, these are not, Carson Palmer is not just a client. Mike Williams is not just a client. Wes Welker, not just a client. They're family members, and we'll do anything for them. And we had to pound that home to our players. We had to pound that home to the players' families. We had to pound that home to our employees, and it became a way of life, and it worked. And it's, if you look at the clients we had at the beginning, you look at like a Johnny Morton, Drew Bledsoe, a John Lynch. They're the type of people who, Joey Harrington, who wanted that. Like, they came from great families. They wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. They wanted an agency that would help them fulfill their potential as a player and a person. And at the time, we were the only one offering that.
I mean, it sounds like, well, why wouldn't everybody do that? I think it's one of those things that it's obviously much harder in practice than it is in theory. Well, in theory, like, yeah, we should all treat people as family. We should all do everything for our clients. But then actually living it out and doing it every day is a different story. To me, that means that it seems like you and David Dunn have. I actually just thought, as I saw David in Tahoe one year when he came by when I was there on a trip. So it's interesting that now we're now talking. But one of the things that I remember him talking about was the fact that he also said, like, obviously you have to negotiate and you got to get the best deals, but that's actually not why our guys are with us.
Yeah.
They're with us, and why they value us is for everything else. And so that means it's a mindset, but it's also the people that work and the people that you hire to work with you. Can you talk a little bit about that philosophy of actually doing the work when it comes to caring and loving your clients, as opposed to, like, I'm just going to try to get you as much money as possible, man? Like, that's a part of it. And I think a lot of people think that's what agents are there to do, when really the reason that you're winning, the reason that your business has grown so much and has so many quality clients, is that you do that part really well, but it's the rest that you differentiate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to remind ourselves when we go to, like the meetings that I'm sure you attended with AJ, when we go to those type of meetings with, we have to remind ourselves to talk about the contracts, and it's ironic because at the very beginning, I went and hired the best negotiators because I thought that was, and it is important, right? I mean, these football players sacrifice a lot, and when they have the opportunity to make their money, they need to get as much money as possible, or get the money they deserve. But yeah, it's not all about the contracts. Like, now we negotiate a contract for a player. and it'll be a 5-year deal. We won't negotiate another deal for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And so what do we do? What's what we do during those 4 years that makes a difference, right? And and that so part of that is hiring people. We have to hire people who are wired the right way. Like we have to hire people who truly care about family. We have to hire people who are wired to like give and give and give and give. And that's one of our philosophies, both in the charity world and in our in our service and how we treat our clients. And the philosophy, which unfortunately I've come, I've had to test it several times, is like, yeah, in this world, like you give and you give and you give and you give some more. And there's going to be a time when we all need something back. We're all in a situation where we're going to be in need. And if we give and we give and we give, then the universe is going to provide, and our time of need, the universe will be there. And so, a good example of that is my personal family has been through a lot of different personal adversity over the years. My wife was in a coma my wife's type 1 diabetic, and she was in a coma for a couple of weeks, and that led to some pretty severe brain damage and years of therapy. And she finally got through all that, and we moved into a new house, and we kind of lived in the house. We're settling down, and then of course the house burns down, and we lose everything. My kids are probably in 7th and 10th grade, 9th and 6th grade at the time, and everything, like literally everything. I saved the computer and the dogs, and that was it. And we're sitting out in the on the sidewalk, and my kids are like, "Dad, we've given and we've given and we've given. We've taken your advice. You've done it." And it seems like the universe just keeps taking from us. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is a perfect example. We have nowhere to live. Now, we had a great community. We had great insurance. Like, I wasn't worried about any of that. But like, we'll find something. And so we moved into a hotel. We're looking around. And lo and behold, there's this older couple who has like a $25 million house on the beach, down in Newport Beach. And they're going on a tour, going around the country, around the world for 2 years. And they had heard about our situation. They had heard about Athletes First. They knew all the charity that we did. And so they called me down to their house, and they said, "Hey, listen, we have this house up for rent for this amount." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's no way. And they said, "Well, what is your insurance paying per month?" And I told them it was like a tenth of what they asked for. And like, "We'll give you our house for the next 2 years for that amount." And again, just an insanely beautiful house. And again, it's this. We weren't homeless. We weren't worried about it. This is not. It's all relative, but it's just a good example. And I was pretty happy. I could go tell my kids, like, "Hey, look, listen, we're in need right now, and the community has provided it for us. Our friends have all been there for us, and now this couple we don't even know, because they've heard so much about what Athletes First have done, they're providing us their house for 2 years. And so I tell that story just because the same thing happened when we were going through litigation, and we got that big judgment against us. My employees reacted the same as my kids, like, "Hey, Murph, we've been giving. Like, we're supposed to win this. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. Like, what's up?" I said, "Hey, listen, I don't know why the jury decided what they did, but what we're going to do is we're going to go across the street to the sports bar. We're going to have some beers, and we're going to celebrate." I'm like, "Well, why? What are we celebrating?" I'm like, "The jury just told us our company's worth $40 million." You know what I mean? I had no idea it was worth that much. So let's enjoy the good parts of it. But while we're sitting there having beers, and they're like, "What are we going to do?" I'm like, "And Murph, why aren't you worried?" I'm like, "Hey, we have a long path ahead of us, but there, to use some election speak or parlance, there's a path to where we want to go. It's going to be a lot harder than we thought it'd be, but we're going to get there, guys. And the universe will provide." And sure enough, we had a banner rookie class that year. Like, people like Wes Welker and Todd came over and signed with us. We did some record-breaking deals, and it was a good year. And so I think that to get to your original question, like, the mentality has to be that we're going to give, and we're going to give, and give, and we're not going to expect anything back. We're not going to want anything back. We're going to know in the back of our minds that giving will provide us a good life and take care of us in a time of need. But that's really what you need, and you can't fake that. You can fake it in the living room for 2 hours, right? You can fake it during a recruiting meeting, but when you sign the client and they become part of your family, like, there's no faking that. And that's why, like, probably 36, 38% of our client base are people who came over to us after their first agent, because they were sold a bill of goods in the living room, and everyone talks about family, everyone talks about charity, everyone talks about giving, giving, giving. But very few people are wired that way, and I think we now are so wired that way because it's worked. You know what I mean? And again, not to be selfish and not to, but like when you do something and it works, then you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. It becomes entrenched, partially because you want to sign the clients, you want to have a big company, you want to be successful.
So, Murph, I'd love for you to take us inside a room, and maybe you can even think of a specific example. Like, let's do like the agent thing right now that most people think of as an agent, because we've covered some of all the extra that you guys do above and beyond. But maybe an example when you're in a room when you could be in person with a really sharp general manager and owner and whoever else needs to be in the room, and you're negotiating a contract for one of your top guys. What like what do you do? Like how do you ensure you're maximizing what your client is receiving for how he plays and the value he provides to that team? What are just some of the, I guess, general tips on negotiation that you think going in? And then maybe what are some surprising things once you take us inside the room with a tough general manager, a tough owner, and you are the agent representing your client? Like, how does that go?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of like preparing for the negotiation and what we do for every single negotiation to, achieve optimal results. And I like the way that you phrase the question because, the optimal results doesn't mean most money, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, sometimes it can. Sometimes that's what the client wants. But in preparation of the negotiation, the first thing we do, and I think is,
Well, real quick on that note,
yeah,
so I remember my brother had won a Super Bowl, and he wanted he basically told his agent, it doesn't matter the money, I'm staying with the Packers.
yep,
Like, unless they like literally don't want me, I will play for the league minimum, but I'm playing for the Packers. Like, I want to stay on this team.
100%.
And obviously, his agent, though, is never going to say that or put that out there. But it does hurt him from a negotiation perspective, knowing like I have to get a deal done with them. And to his credit, he got a really good next deal done, and certainly would have never said that publicly. But there are times when your client is not like, go out on the market and get me the most money, where your client says, I like living here, I love this team, we just won a Super Bowl, like all these things, I don't want to go anywhere else, make this work. As opposed to where the guy's like, hey, just get me the most money, I'll move wherever I got to move. So when you talk about like optimal results, sometimes a player can put his agent in a tougher negotiation spot because he basically says we're going to play here. So I think that's part of it that goes into it, with some guys where they find a good spot, and it certainly you want to maximize your earnings because your window of those earnings are so small and could end at any moment. But that is a part of your business that I'm sure you've had clients that said the same thing.
It should be a part of our business, right? And
Mhm.
100%. And part of that is, like our first step in the negotiation, and particularly in that, like with AJ in that case, is we have to, especially someone like AJ who's so smart, like we have to educate our clients. Like this is like it's the athlete first, right? This is not my contract. This is not my decision.
Yeah.
I am the tool through which you get the best results you can. I'm the conduit, but like they're your results. So the first thing we have to do is we have to educate the player. And sometimes the players will be like, Murph, this is why I hired you. This is why I pay you 3%. Just go get it done. Like quote unquote, show me the money. And it's like, no, like I'm not gonna let you off that easy. Like you were gonna know the market and you were gonna make the decision. And we're gonna make some decisions before we go into the negotiations. Because once the negotiations go on, emotions are flying, blah, blah, blah. Any amount of money they offer you is gonna be a lot of money, right? Relative to what you made in your rookie contract or whatnot, especially now, not when AJ played, but and so, like, we're going to make some decisions now, and we're going to educate you, and we're going to educate the people around you because, while this is your decision, player X, I know your wife is going to say something about, especially where you live or whatnot. You maybe your parents, your coach, maybe you have friends. Like, so we're going to educate you in your inner circle. We're going to show you the market. We're going to show you what it means. We're going to break down the contract and the components. Like, Is a guarantee important to you? Is it not important to you? Is the cash flow important to you? Is the length of the contract? Do you want another bite at the apple? We're going to go through all that stuff. And then we're going to define the ideal result, the optimal result. And part of that definition may be I'm playing for the Green Bay Packers. And AJ, that's fine, right? But and maybe there isn't, but my guess is there's an amount of money where you would go play for the Minnesota Vikings.
Probably.
100 million, you would. $1, you wouldn't. Let's figure it out in between.
Probably.
Because it's easy to say that I'm not going to play anywhere else, but let's test that, right? and maybe it's true, but we'll test it, and we'll push you on it, and we'll challenge you and play devil's advocate. So then when we walk into the negotiating room, and these general managers are phenomenal negotiators, right? It's what they do for a living. There's only 32 of them in the world. Like when we walk in, we know what our goal is. There's absolutely no, we're crystal clear on what the goal is. And on top of that, we are far more prepared than the team. We are ready to go. And just recently, we hired 2 people away from NFL teams. One is Eric Schaefer, who was doing all the contract negotiations, and he's general counsel and senior vice president for Washington Redskins for 18 years. And then another guy, AJ, we hired, been at Tampa Bay for 5 years, just finished Tom Brady's contract down there, and worked with Mike Greenberg. And we hired them because we always want to get better, right? And part of what we thought, like, listen, we need to understand the team's perspective too. If we understand the team's perspective coming in, we'll be that much more prepared. If we understand what rules they play by and what's important to them. So we added those two gentlemen, and they've been a tremendous help. But we walk into that room as prepared as possible. We know everything. We know all the rules. We know the market. We have our crystal clear our target. And I think that's, again, we do that probably better than anybody, going back to the very beginning when we hired, trained negotiators. But that's probably not a surprise to anybody. Now, what is a surprise, the way we do things differently, 2 ways. One, we don't really compare our players to other players. Like when we were doing Harrison Smith's deal with the Minnesota Vikings, and we also represented Earl Thomas at the time. And Earl Thomas was the highest paid safety in the league. And Harrison Smith wanted to be the highest paid safety in the league. And so the normal argument that most agents would do would be compare Harrison Smith's performance to Earl Thomas's performance. Hard to do as a safety, as you know better than I do, but like interceptions, Pro Bowls, everything like that. But at the end of the day, that's not really, what's going to drive the contract, and quite frankly, I got cut from my Pop Warner team. I don't really know much about football. I can't tell you if Harrison Smith's better than Earl Thomas or not. I have no idea. Someone says like cover 2 and I'm lost 100%, so it's like, that's not going to be good for me. And so, but what we can do, and what we did do, is we talked to Rick Spielman and Rob Brzezinski. We said, hey, listen, we don't care if he's better than Earl Thomas, all we care about is Harrison Smith and his alternative scenarios. So let's play the alternative scenario out. He doesn't sign a new contract now. He plays his season out. He's a Pro Bowl. He's not a Pro, whatever. He's an unrestricted free agent. The salary cap goes up 12%. The demand now goes from a team of 1 to, literally 32 teams that want Harrison Smith. The salary cap went up, and we're going to sign a contract for here, and so that is where he'll be next year.
So you kind of anchor a pretty steep price well above Earl Thomas's deal, probably.
Yeah, and again, not
so but it's all real though. You anchor at a realistic spot, especially 100%. For a guy like him. By the way, I did hear one of your other clients, Aaron Rodgers, talk about Harrison Smith as being like one of the most confusing guys to go against, meaning like one of the best. But anyway, Harrison is
one of the smartest people I ever met in my life. He's one of the most argumentative people I ever met with in my life.
Really?
He loves to debate because he's so smart.
You guys gonna hire him when he's done to work for you?
100%. But I'm sure, he's got much bigger plans than that. But he's phenomenal, and that's I think one reason that Aaron so confused by him because and Aaron's also insanely smart, right? As you know, so it's like you got a battle of the brains out there, which you probably know better than most. But football is so much more than just physical ability, right? And both of them are stupid athletes too. But anyway, so we're kind of completely ignoring Earl Thomas. But like you said, we anchor ahead of time, and we have to be right? Because we use the same strategy for Everson Griffin, for Kyle Rudolph, for Trey Waynes, for Anthony Harris. So we have to be right when we make that prediction, or else we lose credibility going forward. but we were right, and it's there. And so, like, if you want him to give up, $10 today, and you want him to do a deal now, and we want to because we want to eliminate the risk of injury and the risk of not playing well. But like the discount should be 8% or whatever. So we'll take $9 instead of 10, and that's a rational economic actor. That's what we, and you should want to pay $9 instead of 10. You buy the house before the housing market goes up, and they're like, well, but 9 is more than Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas only at 7. And my point is, I don't care. Like, I mean, like again, like this is, I know every other agent would come in here and that's what they would focus on. Is he better than Earl Thomas or not? But it doesn't matter, And I think that's also kind of like our philosophy in terms of our competitors. Whatnot. It doesn't matter what our competitors are doing. It doesn't matter what Earl Thomas, who is a client of ours, got paid. All it matters is what will Harry get paid next year, and what's a reasonable discount.
So, but this is great, Murph. One of the things that I want to do is relate this to people who are not agents, relate this to people. Let's say it's somebody who is a high performing mid-level manager who says, you know what, like it's time I got paid a little better, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they want to go to their boss or go to the owner or whatever, or go to a higher up and negotiate to get more money. And part of your strategy is that you guys have a great understanding of how to look into the future, anchor, and then negotiate off of this future in order to get a guy like Harrison Smith such a good deal. So for that person who doesn't play in the NFL, but they work in corporate America, they have done really well. They've led teams. Maybe they have like a VP title, so they're in a mid-level manager, and they want to they're not going to necessarily do a different job. They're going to continue doing their same job, but they want to be compensated better for it. What advice would you give to that person based upon all the things you've learned negotiating these big deals?
Sure. And it goes to what AJ said about like AJ wanted to stay at Green Bay, right? Harrison wanted to stay in Minnesota. Kyle Rudolph wanted to stay in Minnesota. And so, I think like for the VP, I think going to the decision maker and being honest. And I think that AJ did his agent a great favor saying that he wanted to stay in Green Bay. And transparency, like another negotiation tactic that we use or philosophy that we use is complete transparency, right? 100% transparency. And that, hey, listen, for this mid-level manager, vice president, I want to stay at this company. I've done a lot of great things. I want to stay at the company. My goal is to stay at the company. However, if I were to go somewhere else, this is the type of market that I would have, and this is the type of compensation I could demand. And I don't want that. I'm not going to threaten you that I'm going to leave. I want to stay here. But if I stay here, I'm obviously willing to take less money. But I should be making more than I make now. And so the transparency part of it's important. But the most important part, I think it's what most agents miss, and part of what I said about Harrison Smith, is you have to give the other side a reason to do it. You have to give them something that they want, right? Or else, I mean, it's just like dealing. You say you have $5, like dealing with your $5, like getting them to do chores, like as good kids they might be, like you gotta kind of negotiate with them a little bit and give them, like, hell, we can go play soccer, we can go play volleyball, we can do whatever, like after the chores are done, like give them a reason to do it, right?
I think it feels like you were in my house yesterday, Murph. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I did a lot of research. I was spying on you before this.
Anyway.
But like with the Vikings and Harrison Smith, the point is, listen, you can do this deal next year and you're going to pay $10, or you can get Harrison Smith now. Today, we do the deal today, is the cheapest that you'll ever get Harrison Smith, right? It's the least money you'll have to pay to tie him up for 5 years and have the best safety in the game for 5 more years. That's why you want to do it. And that's why I use that argument now and trying to get teams are so reluctant to do deals with 2 years left. I'm like, if you have confidence in this player, this player is going to be a star player and you want to keep him, and the salary cap's going to go up and up and up. The sooner you redo the deal, the cheaper you're going to get them. Which sounds like agent. It sounds like, wait, you're trying to get your player to go for cheap. No, I'm trying to eliminate the risk of injury. I'm trying to eliminate the risk of subpar play. I'm trying to get the money now so we take care of it generations. But I need to give the other team a reason to do that. And so in this case with the vice president, be transparent. I want to stay here. I'm not threatening to go anywhere else. I do know my market. I do know if I did go somewhere else, which I'm not, I can get paid this much money, and my performance is only going to get better. And so, like, if we can take care of this now, what you get, Mister Decision Maker, is you get my services for a longer term, so you know I'm here, and certainty is always great for business planning. But you also, you'll get you get the continuity, but you also get me for less money than I probably would demand next year. And I want to be here, and so you should want to reward people who want to be here. And we do that with our employees all the time. We have never, in 20 years, had a certified agent leave athletes first. Except we've had two, and both for great reasons. But um, for the most part, we kept all of our phenomenal certified agents. People like, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I think the most important part of negotiation, and I'm not doing this on this podcast, but the most important part is listening. You have to listen. Everyone's different. Every one of our agents is different. I have my partners, Justin Schulman, Ryan Williams, Joe Panos, David Mulugeta, and our other agents. They're all different individuals, and they all have different families, they have different stages of life, and they want something different from athlete first. And it's my job to sit down with them and listen to them, see what they want, understand why they want it, and then give it to them. And that's what we do in exchange for their continued loyalty and excellent performance.
Do you let's talk about athletes first. Do you proactively, because like it'd be interesting, like working at a place with a bunch of professional negotiators, or like and working for a guy who went to Harvard Law School and thinking like, how can I ask Murph for more money? Okay, what can I do? Like, do you proactively do this, or what's the process within your business? Because there are a lot of business owners watching, listening, that are saying, what, like, I have some really talented people here that that if they left, it would be bad news. How can I proactively stay ahead of this? Like, is that something you guys do? And if not, like, or like, what's the philosophy there? Because if you're never losing any of your top tier people, that's something that any business leader wants to say, wait, what is he doing? So what are some of the I know it's beyond money, but that's part of it at
Yeah,
times. So
for
what's
sure.
some of the philosophies there?
Well, for the first thing is you have to take your ego out of the way, right? And that's the hard thing. Like, I've always wanted to be the best football agent in the business. I've always wanted to be, if you're the best football agent in the business, you're probably the highest paid football agent in the business. And and unfortunately for me, I've been very lucky to hire uh, numerous agents who are better than I am, And so you have to take the ego out. You got to take the ceiling out, and you have to uh, you know you have to do what's best for your company, right? And you gotta take the ego out of the way. But then, yeah, you have to proactively, like, it's so much easier to keep the star agents than it is to go develop new star agents. And the best thing is to do both at once. To keep my partners, to make sure I keep all my partners happy while developing new young talent. And so then you have even stronger team. But no, absolutely, I have to go to my partners, my agents, my stars, and I have to continue to ask them, what do you need? What do you need? How can I help you? How can I make you better? What does your family need? Like, and what do you want? And in terms of, like, negotiating a contract, it's not only that they want as much money as possible, but they all know somehow what each other makes, and they all want to be treated well. Why would you give so and so this and me this and this? And, like, they want to be treated as individuals, but they want to be treated as the most valuable individual too, right? And that sometimes gets hard because we are a family, and trying to tell someone, well, listen, I'm gonna pay this person a little more than I'm gonna pay you. I just have to have good reasons for it. And it goes back to the transparency, right? And so,
Mhm,
we treat everyone fairly,
mhm.
but we don't treat everyone equally, because not everyone is equal, and not everyone wants the same thing. So, yeah, and it's funny because they're all trained negotiators, and that's where I go back to the transparency. Like, I just had a conversation with one of my great agents today. His contract's coming up at the end of this year, and we had a hour long discussion, and it was basically me listening to what he wanted. And he's extremely fair, but he doesn't want less, he wants more, right? And
Sure. I
and
mean,
we just
always.
yeah, yeah. And so we just talked through it, and I listened to what he wants. I listened to why he wants it, and then what I do is I try my best to give them exactly what they want, if not more. And I don't treat it as a negotiation. I don't treat it like, hey, every dollar I save from this deal is a dollar in my pocket. Well, I want to give them, if I can give them everything they ask for, that's going to increase the loyalty. They're going to work harder. They're going to feel better about athletes first, and they're going to feel better about me. And I can't always do that, but if I can find a way to do it, and I can find a rationale to do it, and I also have to know if I do it for one, I'm going to do it for everyone. And so that's part of the discussion I had today on an issue. Is like, listen, the result is not a bad result. How you got there doesn't work, because if every agent did what you did, we'd have a problem. In this case, it didn't. It worked out fine. It worked fine. But like, you have to follow the protocols we set up, and we're going to have to figure out a way to let this result stand, but know that you're going to follow protocols in the future, because we can't treat it. We can't make exceptions for people, no matter how good they are. And so, yeah, so we're very proactive. But I think what we do differently than most is just not. We just did it with Todd France. Todd France, one of the best agents in the business, was leaving CAA, interviewed with 17 different agencies, ended up choosing athletes first over everyone else. I know for a fact we didn't pay him the most money, but I spent time with Todd, I spent time with his wife, I spent time with his coworkers. I figured out what was important to Todd. I figured out what his hopes, what his dreams were. And then my presentation to Todd was not, I didn't even mention the money at the beginning. He brought it up at the end, but I didn't mention it at the beginning. I said, here's my platform. Well, here's your dreams. Here's your aspirations. Here's what you want to achieve. Here's how I can help you do it. Here's a platform I can
How do you
provide
know
you.
how do you know his dreams? How did you know all of this?
I had to listen to him. I mean, I didn't have to listen to him. I got to listen to him. I mean, I spent 6 hours with him in a hotel room.
But that, so
Um,
yeah, this is the part
yeah,
that I want to get to, because I
yeah,
think when you certainly, like, the money was enough, but you won, I'm guessing, because of those 6 hours or all of the work leading up to it. Because when somebody, I think we all in a way want to feel heard. We want people to listen. We want people to care. We want to have this mutual love, like with what we do. I mean, your job's too hard not to really love it, I would guess, to be good at it. Like, it's just too hard. There's too much work. There's too much that goes into it. So part of why he chooses you over the other 17 or other 16 places that he looked, despite probably not getting the most money, was I, and then I want to point out to other people, is when you're leading a team, that part, and maybe I'll ask you to go a little bit deeper, of knowing his dreams, knowing his goals, knowing what he wanted to do, how you were able to uncover that and understand that in the sales process. This would be the discovery phase, right? How you did such a good job in the discovery phase, that also would play in your profession as a lawyer. And then you're able to tie back your pitch based
yeah.
upon what he said and what he wanted, not how awesome Athletes First was.
Right, right. Because I believe Athletes First is awesome, but the
Right,
question here is it awesome for Todd?
right.
And it might not be. It might. I mean, if Todd wanted to go someplace where he was like the clear number one, agent, and he was in control of everybody, and he's going to be able to, boss it, then Athletes First isn't the place for him. And we have, 13 phenomenal agents, and not everyone's obviously Todd France, but that wouldn't be the place for him. So, no, you hit it right on the head, and basically, it's really, you're the best example of how it has to be done, right? I mean, what you do is you ask questions and you listen, and you're not just doing it to get followers. You're not just doing it to build up your following. You're not just doing it to get, jobs off it, whatnot. You're doing it because you genuinely care about learning about leadership and about learning about people. And everyone you have on your show, you look forward to learning something and to becoming better, right? And you want to make your show the best show it can be for your guests, because yeah, it will lead to more success. But I think you genuinely want to do it because you don't love your guests, like we don't love each other, but like you love having guests who are happy and who
Well,
enjoy the experience.
the reward, and I'm guessing you feel this way too. To me, the reward for doing great work is the opportunity to continue to do it. So part of
Yep.
why I care so much about this, the growth and what I do, is because that then gives me the ability to continue to do the thing that I love. And I think that that's important, I think, for people, and I really recognize that. So, like, why am I not afraid to promote my work? Because it gives me the opportunity to do what I love, to have
Yep.
long form conversations with a guy who started this business 20 years ago in the midst of getting sued for 5 years and now is one of the greatest agents in the world. I mean, I think, like, if you're not willing to kind of promote and do the things to spread what you do, this doesn't happen. So I think, I know I'm on a little tangent here, but that's like, I sense that in you too, of like, part of why you care so much about your clients and care so much about your work is because you just want to keep doing it.
100%. And this could sound corny, but I want to be able to put as many athletes first as possible. And we have a great platform. We have a great business model. It works. Like
Mhm.
we are very good at helping our players become the best players they can be and become the best people they can be, and extend that to their families. And that's a phenomenal feeling. And
Yeah.
so, answering your question, like sitting down with Todd and Trace Armstrong was there as well, and asking Todd questions. And we spent 6 hours in the hotel room, maybe more, like 8 hours in the hotel room. We were done. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We're all old men, and like sitting in a hotel room and just talking for till that time of day, morning was unusual for us. But it was unusual for him because I didn't ask him once who his clients were. I didn't ask him once, like, what deals he had coming up. I mean, I knew. I mean, it's Todd France. Like, he's going to have great clients and he's going to have great deals and he's going to continue. I didn't care about that. That's one of the reasons I was there. But like, I didn't have to ask him about that. I'd ask him like, who's your wife? How long have you been married? Who are your kids? What, like, how often do you see your kids? How often do you travel? Like, what do you like to do with your children? Like, you've done so much. You're the head of CA's football. You've been Forbes #1 agent for 2 years in a row. Like, why us? Like, what do you want to do next 5 years? Like, you want to keep going, you want to keep signing like two first rounders minimum two first rounders every year for 13 years. You only want the business to do that. Is that you want to make that 20 years? Like, and quite frankly, like, is if that's what drives you, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure we want that to be part of it. Or do you want to run a company, or do you want to help be part of a team? Like, what do you want? And it's interesting. I had that same conversation with the other super agent, other agent that we have at Todd's level, David Mulugeta, who's been with us since he's an intern, and he's amazing. He's an incredible agent, and he's breaking down all kinds of barriers for African American agents, and I couldn't be more proud of him. But when his contract was up last, everyone was after him.
Mhm.
And I sat down with him. I said, what's important to you? And his response was interesting. His response was not in these exact words, but he's like, listen, I don't want to be James Harden. And I'm like, okay, but I've seen you play basketball. There's no problem there. He's like, no, like, he's like, I want to be part of a team where I don't have to score 52 points to win the championship. I want to be surrounded by phenomenal agents. I want to be surrounded by the best. I want to be part of the dream team. That's what I want. And I'm like, okay, it's interesting, because like right now you're doing so well, and and he has a very unique approach, which is phenomenal. But I never knew that about him, and that is why when Todd France became available, I went to talk to Todd, which I usually wouldn't do because we already had so many good agents, and we already had like David Mogetta, who's like top of the game. And when we were talking to Todd, all these other agencies started calling David, like, "Oh, I hear they're going to hire Todd France to replace you." And so David calls me, he's like, "What are they talking about?" I'm like, "David, they don't understand how two of the best agents can collaborate and be part of a team under one roof. They don't understand that you don't want to be James Harden. You know what I mean?" And again, I'm never going to hire Todd France if one of my family members isn't in favor of it.
Mhm.
But like, this is what you want, and vice versa. Todd France wants to be part of a team
Mhm.
of the best, and he wants to work with David. He wants to work with Ryan Williams. He wants to work with Cameron Hahn and Kyle McCarthy, and he wants to do great things with them and help them become better. And it's been great. And so you hit it right on the head. Every agent I have has different desires, and every agent we have is their own person, and it's my job to give them the best athletes first for them. And that's different for everybody, and it's hard, as you can imagine. And it has to be equal, and every decision we make impacts everyone else. But it goes back to the way I'm wired, and this is the way we treat our clients too. I truly do, and this is going to sound corny, I truly do love all of our employees. It is a family. And you walk through our office and you'll know it's a family. I care about them. I care about their families. I care about their children. I care about their success. I think I've had many people say, well, or refer to me like, well, you're one of the best football agents in the business. And my thing is like, I believe my abilities, but I don't view myself as a football agent. And I view myself as like the head of this phenomenal family of employees, and in that family, we do have the best football agents in the business. We do, top to bottom. And we talk about like Todd France and David Mulligetta, but we have also like Blaine Roach and Savannah Wall and Carmen Wallace, uh, phenomenal certified agents who've been doing this for a long time, who maybe don't get the glory and the headlines of the other people, but without them we can't do what we do. And so we have a great team, and I do love them all. And I'm getting on a tangent because I'm so proud of them, but like
Awesome.
I think that's what it takes, and that's what it really takes to build what we built. You have to care about everyone as
Yeah.
individuals, as people.
Well, I know we're a little over, but I have one more question. So you've been in this business, your current business, for 20 years, worked with others prior to that. When you think about the combination of some of the athletes you work with as well as colleagues you work with, a number of them have sustained excellence over an extended period of time. And that's one, really cool that that's kind of the world you live in. But two, I'd love to know when you have to distill that and maybe deconstruct a few points, a few commonalities amongst those people. What have you found when you think about those who have sustained excellence that they all seem to have in common?
It's funny that we just talked about listening so much, because listening is the key, and keeping your ear to the knowing your people, knowing the people who work for you, and knowing what they want and providing what they want. That's important. We already talked about that. But the other part is, and I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people about this, and I grew up in Boston, and unfortunately I was a little too young to remember like the Red Auerbach Celtics, but watching the Larry Bird Celtics against Magic Johnson Lakers, and then seeing Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson talking about how hard it is to repeat. And I think we last year we had the best NFL draft in history. No one's ever done what we did with 19 of the first 50 picks. And the first thing I told everybody is like, it's going to be incredibly hard to repeat that, because everyone's going to be gunning for us. Everyone's going to be spreading rumors about us. We can't do the same thing and have the same results. We have to get better. And I think in terms of sustainability, and this is just one of the cliche, but like you just can't get complacent. You always have to get better. So we went out and we sat down and how can we improve our training? Some agents are like, what do you mean improve our training? Our training has been off the charts, amazing. Like, yeah, but it's got to get better. And what we did, the biggest thing we talked about was we went and hired Todd France. And people are like, why do you need Todd France? You're the top of the football agency totem pole. Everything's going well. Why risk it by bringing in, someone of that magnitude and that stature? Like, it's not going to upset the apple cart. But no, we need to get better. If we didn't hire Todd France, someone else would, and they'd inch closer to us and close to it. So, always looking for ways to get better. But I think the most important two most important keys to sustained excellence. One is you have to plan for the future, and by that means going back to the very first thing I said, we didn't call our company Dunn and Murphy. Our agency, our clients don't run through Dunn and Murphy. We hire young people like a David Mulligetta, like a Kyle McCarthy, like Travis and Bryce are our youngest agents now. We hire them, we empower them, we give them a platform so they can be excellent. And if we have generations of excellence, if we have myself up here, and by up here I mean age-wise, not important-wise, right? And then we have my partners, and then we have our middle agents. Now we have our young agents, and every generation is better than the people ahead of them. And we're going to be there for a long time. And that's something that most sports agents made mistake. You go back all the way back to like David Falk and And Lee Steinberg, like everyone we signed when we were Steinberg were done, Lee Steinberg had to sign the SRA. So we had Joby Brannion doing a great job going out and getting Achilles Smith, and Lee became his agent. Signed Edger James, Lee became his agent. So he was disempowering the people around him. And when people are disempowered, they're not going to stay. They're going to leave, and that's what we did, right? And so I think sustained excellence, you have to plan for the future. You have to empower the young people. You have to realize that this is not all about you. It's about the family. It's about the culture. And then the other, essential part of sustainability is, it goes back to what we've been talking about, all along here, is that you have to remove your ego, and you have to continue to give people a reason to be loyal to your culture. And it can't be, hey, I'm staying here for Murph. I'm staying here because Murph treats me so wrong. It's like, no, it's all right. People are going to stay here because they are loyal to the Athletes First family. And we will do anything for family. People will be loyal to family. And that's what we build up all the time. So in terms of sustainability, you have to build a culture to which people will be loyal. You have to make them feel like they're part of the family. And you'll lose some people. Some people will leave for greener pastures. That hasn't happened to us yet, but I'm sure it will. But it's like, I think that's it. So I spend most of my day trying to figure out how to create our culture, how to enhance our culture, and how to make it a place that no one else wants to leave. I spend way more time on that than I do, recruiting football players or whatnot. I think that's the most important part.
I just sense that you think of every day like you've got to earn it. Like, no, you're not. You don't have to be loyal to me because I demand it. You earn their loyalty daily, and I think that's why people are, because I sense that you view that as one of the key priorities of your job is to earn it daily and not just demand it of other people because you're the founder or you're the boss.
100%. But the other part is, go back to your daughters. Like, it's what I want to do. I mean,
Yeah.
like you and I are both lucky. Like, my job is to make my Athlete First family members happy.
Yeah.
What better way to spend the day than that? You know what I mean? It's like, and again, everybody. Like, I meet with one of our great client service relations persons. Her name's Danielle. She's been with us for about 8-9 years. She's phenomenal, but she's so good. We have her doing way too many things right now, right? And so, like, I got to meet with her later today. I met with her last week. I said, "You're phenomenal at everything you do. You can't keep up with this pace. Like, you need a life, and like, so pick what you're best at. Like, how do you want to spend your day, and then we'll get reinforcements on the other parts, right? And but pick what you want to do. What do you want? So I'm looking forward to seeing what she has to say today. But like, I get to give her time, the gift of time back, and I get to give her, define her role a little more narrowly. Which at first, like, no, I want to do everything. I want to be more. That's how I'm more valuable. I'm like, no. Let's give you the gift of time. You have a husband. You just got recently married, and like, you can't spend your whole time with this. Let's narrow it down. But I get to help her truly get her life back a little bit, be a better person, and ultimately be a better employee. And I can't wait for that meeting. And I'm not doing that because I want Athletes First to function better. I mean, it's part of it. But I'm doing it because she's been a phenomenal part of our company. She started off as an intern. I love her husband, and like, she deserves that. So yeah, I do spend my time doing that, like earning their loyalty and whatnot. But I don't, as you can imagine, I don't think of it that way. I just think of it, hey, who can I help today? Who needs my help? Whose life can I make better? Who can I enhance? And who can I enrich? And it goes to clients too. We do. I mean, obviously, we do the same thing for our clients. Is continually finding ways to make them happier, and that's a great life to live. It really is.
Very cool. Well, Brian Murphy, man, thanks so much for being here. Where would you send my viewers and listeners to learn more about you online?
Probably just athletesfirst.net. It's our website, But I would encourage anyone. My email is very simple. It's bmurphy@athletesfirst.net.
Wow.
And I encourage anyone that you want to learn more about agency, world agency. I mean, I know I reach out to a lot of agents when I was trying to get in this world, and I had this conversation about, we were having family dinner last night, and I got one of those emails from a young attorney in New York, and and I was talking to my kids about, like, I respond to every one of them, or someone responds to every one of them, because it's a blessing to be in a position where people want to learn more about our industry, and it's a great industry, and we want to help as many people as possible. So yeah, they can reach out to me, and I'm not saying I'll be the one to reply, but someone will reply, and give them any insights that they need.
That's awesome, man. I really appreciate that, and I'm grateful for your investment of your time, especially amongst all the other things you have going on. So I certainly want to continue our dialogue as we both progress, man.
No, hey, it's honestly a real privilege and honor to be on your show. As I mentioned to you last week, like you've introduced me to podcasts, and I've had the pleasure of listening to several of them now. And you do a great job, and it was an honor to be here, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity. I'm thankful for your other podcasts, and you're teaching me a lot. So I
Oh,
appreciate the lessons.
thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
All
All
right, you
right.
too.